They say trust breaks slowly, like a hairline crack crawling through glass. At first, you don't notice it. Then one day, the whole pane shatters. For me, that first crack appeared at a birthday party in Denver. It was late March. Cold but not miserable. One of those in-between months when winter hasn't quite left but spring's trying to push its way through. Sarah and I were invited to our friend Jake's 35th, hosted at a loft downtown that someone's cousin had renovated into a bar-meets-lounge kind of place. Edison bulbs, exposed brick, overpriced cocktails. The kind of spot Sarah loved. Polished, curated, filled with people who laughed too loud and drank gin out of coupe glasses like it was a personality trait. I wasn't in the mood for it that night. Work had drained me, and the cold had this way of settling into my bones lately. But Sarah had insisted. "You never go out anymore?" she said, standing in front of the mirror in a low-cut black dress, red lipstick in hand. "You're turning into someone's dad, and we don't even have kids." So I went, because I always did. There were maybe 30 people there, most of them familiar in that fuzzy, we met twice at a barbecue kind of way. Jake was already drunk, hugging people with too much enthusiasm and calling everyone his day ones. Sarah slipped easily into conversation after conversation, gliding through the room like she belonged to everyone. Not just me. At some point in the night, I ended up near the back patio, talking to an old coworker about Colorado's housing prices and how he was trying to buy in Boulder before it got even worse. It was mundane, forgettable. But right then, I heard Sarah's laugh, sharp, deliberate, almost forced, rise above the ambient chatter. I turned toward the sound. She was standing with a small group near the fireplace. 4 or 5 people, mostly guys, 1 woman. She had her hand on someone's shoulder, telling a story loud enough to command the whole circle. And I'm like, honestly, do boring husbands even know they're boring? Or do they just slowly fade into khaki? Laughter. Real laughter. Not polite. Someone clapped their hands. "Damn, Sarah," a guy said, half choking on his drink. "You savage." Even Sarah laughed at herself, covering her mouth like she was embarrassed. But I knew better. She loved attention. Always had. It was part of what drew me to her in college. The confidence, the spark, the way she made rooms tilt in her direction. But that moment didn't sit right with me. Not the joke itself, I've got thicker skin than that, but the tone. It wasn't playful. It was performative. Meant to entertain, not tease. A line she'd been waiting to deliver. And then it happened. As she reached into her clutch, small, black, glittery, to pull out her phone or maybe lip gloss, something slipped out and hit the floor near her ankle. It was quick. I don't think anyone else noticed. But I did. A hotel key card. And right beside it, folded in thirds, was a breakfast voucher. Even from where I stood, maybe 10, 12 feet away, I could read the words. Breakfast for 2 deluxe stay package, valid through March 25th. That was tomorrow. Sarah spotted it instantly, crouched down with this fluid, graceful motion, and snatched it up before anyone else even turned their heads. She straightened, laughed like it was the funniest thing that had ever happened, and waved the card in the air. "Oh my God, seriously?" she said to the group, rolling her eyes. "Okay. Who put this in my bag? I swear. Jake, if this is some prank." More laughter. Jake raised his hands from across the room. "Don't look at me. I'm too broke for hotel pranks." Sarah walked over to me then, smiling wide, and slipped the card into her clutch like she was filing away a receipt. "You're not going to get all jealous, are you?" she said, sliding her hand into mine. Her voice dropped just enough for only me to hear the next part. "It's nothing, babe. Chill. Chill." That single word rattled something in me, because I was calm. I hadn't said a word. I hadn't even given her a look. Not really. But she was already playing defense, already steering the story, controlling the crowd, putting me in the role of the overreacting husband before I'd even opened my mouth. She turned back to the group and added, louder this time, "You guys don't know Jason. He gets weird about stuff like this." The way she said it, like this, as if this was just some harmless mix-up, made everyone chuckle. My face burned. I managed a tight smile and sipped my drink. The conversation moved on. Somebody made a joke about Craigslist creeps. Someone else started talking about Airbnbs. But I couldn't unsee it. I couldn't unknow that the keycard didn't just appear in her bag. It hadn't been folded like a joke, hadn't come with a wink or a gag gift tag. It had slid out like it belonged there. Clean. Intentional. Quiet. We stayed at the party for another hour or so. Sarah kept laughing, drinking, moving through conversations like a social butterfly on a mission. She never once looked thrown off. In fact, she seemed freer, almost like whatever had just happened had given her adrenaline. I found myself watching her, not out of admiration this time, but like I was studying someone I didn't quite recognize. Her mannerisms were too polished. Her smiles didn't linger as long when no one was looking. And twice, I caught her checking her phone with a strange urgency, typing something quickly, then tucking it away again before anyone could catch a glance. We Ubered home that night. I didn't say a word about the keycard. She didn't offer more explanation. She leaned on my shoulder in the car, humming to the faint music playing through the driver's speakers. I kept staring out the window, trying to convince myself that I was overthinking it, that maybe Jake had slipped the card in as some stupid prank. But I knew him better than that, and I knew her. When we got home, she peeled off her heels and made a beeline for the bedroom. "I'm wiped," she said through a yawn. "You coming?" "In a bit," I said, staying behind in the kitchen. I opened the fridge just to have something to do with my hands, then closed it again. Nothing inside would fix the growing knot in my gut. I walked into the living room and stared at the city lights outside our window. Denver looked the same, but something in my world had shifted. And I knew I'd seen something real tonight, not the kind of real you confront right away, but the kind that waits, that grows, that first small crack. And once it's there, it never really disappears. You tell yourself it's nothing, that you're imagining things, that maybe she was telling the truth, and maybe the hotel card really was a prank. But the problem is, once the seed of doubt is planted, it doesn't stop growing. It pushes through your memory like roots under concrete, breaking, bending, twisting things out of shape until all the cracks start showing. That week after the party, I couldn't sleep. Not really. I'd drift off around 2 or 3, wake up before my alarm, and just lie there in bed while Sarah snored softly next to me, completely unbothered. She seemed fine. Better than fine, actually. Happier. More energetic. She'd started working out again, nothing intense, just a spin class or two. But the timing felt convenient. Right when I was unraveling, she was glowing. The first memory that came back to me, like a flashbulb behind the eyes, was a Tuesday night 2 months earlier. She'd come home in a red satin dress I'd never seen before. Hair done, makeup still fresh. I asked where she'd been. "Dinner with Laura," she said, tossing her clutch on the counter. Laura, right? Her best friend since college. They'd grown apart in recent years, but Sarah still used her as an alibi all the time. That night, I remembered thinking something felt off. The way she didn't want to hug me when she got home. The fact that she took her phone into the bathroom while she got undressed. The smell of perfume that was sharper than her usual musky, expensive, something new. At the time, I chalked it up to stress. But now, it played like a scene from a movie I'd seen before, only this time I knew the twist. I started noticing the way her phone was always flipped face down on the table, screen hidden. Even when it buzzed, she never rushed to check it in front of me, only when she thought I wasn't looking. Once, I went to plug in my charger and found hers missing. Not just unplugged, gone. I asked if she had it, and she said, "I brought it to work by accident, but I work from home. I could have easily swung by and dropped it off." She didn't ask me to. Her girls' nights started happening more often. Always short notice. Always on the same nights, Thursdays and Sundays. "Why Sundays?" I asked once, and she laughed. "It's the only night we're all free. You know Laura, she works weekends." Except when I bumped into Laura at the grocery store a few weeks later, she didn't mention Sarah once. When I casually brought her up, said something like, "I think she was with you last Sunday?" Laura looked confused for half a second too long. "Oh, right. Yeah, we caught up at that wine place. I'm losing track of time lately." She smiled and pushed her card away. The lie was paper thin. One night, Sarah left for another girl's night, and I waited until I was sure she was out of the building. Then I checked the browser history on her laptop. She never used it much, mostly her phone, but I figured if there was anything, it'd be there. Most of it was innocent. Online shopping, workout routines, a bookmarked page about how to grow tomatoes indoors. But one search stood out: how to clear location history from Uber. The timestamp was 3 days earlier. After that, I started keeping a list. It felt crazy at first, like I was building a conspiracy wall in my own mind, but I couldn't help it. Every little thing became evidence. Every inconsistency, every casual lie, every receipt that didn't add up. January 14th. She told me she was going to a networking mixer. Said it was for her job, some event with wine and cheese and a keynote speaker. But when she got home, she didn't mention anything about the event. No anecdotes. No new contacts. When I asked how it went, she shrugged and said, "It was boring. I left early." Except her Uber receipt said she was dropped off at a hotel bar. Not the conference center. And not early, at 11:46 p.m. Another time, she borrowed my hoodie. One of the few she claimed didn't make her feel like a frumpy college kid. And I didn't see it again for 2 weeks. When it came back, it smelled like aftershave. Not mine. Some brand I didn't recognize, woodsy. Expensive. I didn't even ask about it. I just hung it up in the closet like I hadn't noticed. The lies started feeling so effortless that I began wondering if they'd always been there. If I'd been walking through a fog for years and only now realized how little I could actually see. I remember one morning, I made coffee for both of us. Something I'd done 1,000 times, and handed her a mug without thinking. She looked at it, paused and said, "Oh, I don't drink almond milk anymore. Remember?" Except she did. She always had. For 5 years straight. It was the only kind of milk we kept in the fridge. Now suddenly, she'd switched to oat milk, and didn't think to mention it until after the fact. People don't change overnight. But cheaters do. They rewrite themselves to fit into someone else's world. And sometimes they forget who they used to be. Even her perfume was different. She used to wear a floral scent, light, vanilla-ish, the kind that lingered faintly on pillows. Lately, it was something bold. Citrus, maybe? Mixed with something darker. Clung to her coat. One night, I leaned in to kiss her cheek and almost gagged. "You went heavy with it tonight," I said. She gave a small shrug. "Guess I overdid it." The truth was, it wasn't for me. Not anymore. At night, I started staying up after she went to bed. I'd sit in the living room with the lights off and just watch. Listen. Wait. Half the time, she'd fall asleep with her phone clutched in her hand. Other nights, I'd hear soft typing after midnight. Once, I got out of bed and peeked into the hallway. She was sitting on the floor with her back against the wall, whispering into the phone. I couldn't make out the words, just soft, int asterisk mate tones. Her laugh, her whisper. When she saw me, she jumped like she'd been caught stealing. "Work stuff," she said, clutching the phone like it was a lifeline. "You scared the hell out of me." "In your pajamas?" I asked. She rolled her eyes and went into the bathroom without answering. The worst part wasn't the lies. It wasn't the sneaking around or the fake smiles. It was the way she started treating me like a burden, like I was in the way of her real life. The distance wasn't physical. We still shared a bed, still ate dinner together, still exchanged "I love yous" out of habit, but it was all surface. There was no weight behind anything she said anymore. And I started to shrink inside myself, question my own judgment. Was I imagining this? Was I turning into some paranoid cliché? The kind of guy who reads too much into text messages and forgotten milk brands? I even convinced myself I might be going crazy, until I remembered the key card. That wasn't a feeling. That wasn't a hunch. That was real. I saw it. I watched it fall from her purse. I watched her pick it up and laugh it off in front of a room full of people like it was a harmless joke. Like I didn't count. Like I wasn't there. And that's when I knew. I wasn't imagining anything. This wasn't anxiety or insecurity or paranoia. This was a pattern. A slow, deliberate erosion of truth, covered up by smiles, excuses, and the kind of emotional gaslighting that makes you feel crazy for trusting your gut. But I wasn't crazy, and something told me I hadn't even seen the worst of it yet. People talk about gut instincts like there's some mystical sixth sense, but the truth is your gut isn't guessing, it's remembering. Every detail you ignored, every look that didn't sit right, every story that didn't quite add up. You call it a hunch, but it's really your subconscious whispering. You already know. After weeks of pretending I didn't see what I saw, I stopped playing dumb. I started paying attention. I didn't confront Sarah, not yet. I didn't dig through her phone or install tracking software or do any of the things I'd once sworn I'd never stoop to. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted the truth. Something final. Something I couldn't explain away or rationalize in the middle of the night when my mind spiraled. So I waited, and the universe, like it always does, gave me an opportunity. It started with a text she showed me while we were watching TV one evening. We were halfway through a rerun of The Office, the one where Jim puts Dwight's stapler in Jell-O. Sarah had her feet in my lap, scrolling on her phone. I wasn't paying attention until she suddenly turned the screen toward me. "Ugh, look at this," she said. "They're making us do this dumb corporate dinner on Friday. Total waste of time." The message was from her boss, or so she said. I read it fast. Something about a formal dinner, client appreciation, Boulder Marriott, dress code business casual. She groaned and set her phone down. "You want me to drive you?" I asked, pretending I was still just a husband offering a ride. "No need," she said quickly. "I'll just Uber. It's probably gonna run late anyway." My stomach flipped. It was the second time in 2 months she'd mentioned a work thing in Boulder. The first was vague. A retreat, she'd called it. A long weekend with her department to reset. She came back from that one with a fresh tan line on her left shoulder and a scarf I'd never seen before. She said a coworker gifted it to her. I didn't ask questions then. I didn't want to know. But now I did. That Friday, she left around 5:15 p.m. Wearing a slate blue blouse I'd never seen and heels that hadn't been touched since our anniversary dinner in 2021. Her hair was curled, and she'd actually used the red lipstick she normally reserved for holidays and weddings. "You look great," I said, and I meant it. Even as the words felt like shards in my throat, she kissed me lightly. "I'll be back late. Don't wait up, okay?" I nodded and watched her walk out the door. A perfect performance from a woman who used to look at me like I was the only thing in the room. As soon as her Uber pulled away, I grabbed my keys. I didn't tail her. I'd already guessed where she'd end up. Boulder's only an hour from our place, if you avoid traffic. I drove without music, headlights carving through mountain shadows, hands clenched around the wheel like I was holding onto a version of myself I didn't want to lose. I didn't even know what I was hoping for. That she'd actually be at the dinner? That it was a real work event and I was the villain in this story? Just another insecure husband chasing ghosts? Or maybe deep down I already knew. I just needed to see it. The address she'd mentioned, the corporate dinner, was a conference hotel near the lake. A beige monstrosity with too much glass and a circular driveway full of Teslas and Autos. I parked on the street 2 blocks away and walked around the back, hoping to get a view of the main ballroom through the windows. Nothing. Just round tables with white linens, a buffet table, a bored-looking bartender restocking bottled water. But then I noticed the neighboring houses along the lake, modern, angular, high-end. The kind of places real estate agents describe as quiet luxury. And parked in front of one of them, maybe 6 houses down from the hotel, was her car. Sarah's silver Mazda. The parking sticker from our complex was still on the windshield. I froze. She had Ubered to the event. So why was her car already here? I walked closer, slow, cautious, heart pounding so hard it was hard to hear anything else. I crossed the street and crept up the opposite sidewalk, using the hedges and parked SUVs as cover. The house had floor-to-ceiling windows, no blinds. And inside, lit by the soft flicker of a fireplace, I saw her, Sarah, sitting on a cream-colored couch, legs crossed, glass of wine in her hand. Next to her, too close, was a man. Older than me, maybe by 5 years. Button-down shirt, no tie, sleeves rolled up. He leaned toward her as she spoke. She touched his hand. He laughed at something she said and rested his palm against her knee. They didn't kiss. They didn't have to. Her body language told the whole story. The lean in, the soft eye contact, the wine glass held lazily like she was home. Like this wasn't new. Like she'd been here before. And just like that, everything I'd suspected, everything I'd tried to deny, turned solid. My world didn't shatter exactly. Calcified. Turned cold and still. This wasn't a theory anymore. This wasn't emotional distance or mixed signals. This was her. Wrapped in someone else's energy. Breathing easier in a room that didn't have my name on it. I didn't knock. Didn't make a scene. Didn't call or text or take a photo. I just stood there long enough to memorize it. The way her shoulders relaxed when he spoke. The way her lips curled at the edges in that little half-smile she used to give me on lazy Sunday mornings. The way she didn't look around once because she had no reason to think I'd follow. She was completely unguarded. Comfortable. I walked back to my car with my heart in my throat. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove. I think I stopped at a gas station somewhere off the highway, bought a bottle of water and a pack of gum I didn't open, then kept driving until I was back in Denver. When I got home, everything was exactly as we'd left it. Her coffee mug in the sink. Her sandals by the door. Her book still open on the kitchen table to page 242. Like she'd only stepped out for a moment and would be right back to finish the chapter. But I knew better now. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the clock tick. She came home around 1:30 a.m. I didn't say anything. Just pretended to be asleep. She slipped into bed quietly, not even bothering to change out of her clothes. I could smell the wine on her breath, the faint scent of her new perfume clinging to the sheets. "Good night," she whispered, like nothing was broken. And I said nothing, because I didn't need to fight. I didn't need to accuse her. I had the truth now, and it was more powerful than any confrontation could ever be. There's a moment, after the lie breaks, after the illusion crumbles, where you don't feel anything. No rage, no heartbreak, just this quiet, sick clarity. You look around your life, and everything feels staged. The coffee machine, the couch pillows, the framed photo from your honeymoon. All props in a play you didn't know had ended. That's how I felt the morning after I saw her with him. Sarah was still asleep when I got out of bed. I stood there for a moment watching her breathe. She looked peaceful, almost innocent. That was the part that got to me. That even now, even knowing what I knew, some part of me still wanted to believe she was the person I married. But she wasn't. She couldn't be. That version of her had gone somewhere I couldn't follow. I showered quietly, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table staring at the wall for what felt like hours. The sunlight coming through the window made everything look too soft, too normal, like it was mocking me. By noon, I made my decision. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to plead or demand answers or ask questions I already knew the answers to. I wasn't even going to say goodbye. I was just going to leave. Not forever, not yet, but enough to get space. Enough to breathe. Enough to be away from the constant hum of her lies vibrating through the walls. I packed a duffel bag with the essentials. Jeans, a few shirts, my shaving kit, a charger. I left my wedding ring on the nightstand, not because I was making a statement, but because it felt heavy now, like dead weight. I grabbed my passport and ID, just in case, and left everything else behind. The apartment was quiet when I closed the door. She was still asleep. I didn't leave a note. I found a motel on the east side of town, one of those faded relics with chipped paint and numbered keys instead of keycards. The kind of place you could vanish into without anyone asking questions. The room smelled like stale cigarettes and pine-scented cleaner, but it had a bed, a lamp, and 4 walls that didn't lie to me. That was enough. I sat on the edge of the bed and exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks. Then I waited. I expected a call, a text, a flood of panic or accusations. Maybe even a voicemail laced with concern. "Where are you? Are you okay?" Something. Anything. But the hours passed, and nothing came. By nightfall, I started checking my phone more often, refreshing the screen like maybe it had glitched. Still nothing. I wondered if she even noticed I was gone. Or worse, if she had and didn't care. That first night in the motel was harder than I expected. It wasn't just the silence. It was the stillness. The way the room didn't breathe like our apartment did. No fridge humming. No footsteps from the upstairs neighbors. No familiar creak of the floorboard by the bathroom. Just quiet. I tried watching TV, but every channel felt like background noise for a life I no longer lived. I ended up staring at the motel ceiling, counting the cracks in the paint. Somewhere down the hall, a baby cried for a few minutes, then stopped. After that, just silence again. I kept the light on. I don't know why. I think part of me was afraid of what I'd see in the dark. The next morning, I turned my phone back on expecting at least one message. But there was nothing. No missed calls. No texts. No emails. It was like I'd slipped through a crack in the world, and no one noticed I was gone. I called my work and told them I was taking a few days off. No explanation. Just burnout. They understood. Or pretended to. Either way, I was free. The motel clerk didn't ask any questions when I paid for 3 more nights. He barely looked at me, just handed over a fresh set of scratchy towels and gave me a nod. The second night was worse. I thought the silence would feel like relief, like space to finally think. But it wasn't that. It was suffocating. There's a kind of quiet that doesn't soothe. It scratches at your nerves, reminds you how alone you really are. It doesn't let you sleep. Around 3 a.m., I heard a knock on the wall behind me. Not loud, not frantic, just a knock. 3 short taps. Then nothing. I froze, listening. No voices, no footsteps, just the heater wheezing in the corner. I got up and checked the hallway. Empty. Paranoia? Maybe. But the feeling stuck with me. The third day, I finally cracked and checked Sarah's Instagram. Nothing new posted. No story. Her last post was a week old. A photo of some overpriced brunch dish captioned, "Sunday reset sun with face clinking glasses." I wondered if he took it. I almost laughed. Or screamed. I wasn't sure which. I checked her location through Find My iPhone. She'd turned it off. It used to be on all the time. Safety, she'd said. In case one of us disappears. Guess she was planning for herself. That night I heard the knock again. Same rhythm. 3 taps. Then silence. I didn't check the hallway this time. I just stared at the wall and waited for something else to happen. But nothing did. I didn't sleep. The next morning something changed. It was around 9 a.m. when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. No caller ID. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. Finally, I answered. No one spoke at first. Just static. Then a low, male voice, almost mechanical. "You need to leave," it said. I sat up. "Who is this?" "She's not who you think she is," the voice continued. "She's been planning this for months." "What are you talking about?" Everything was coordinated. None of it was an accident. Not the arguments. Not the distance. Not even the keycard. She needed you out. She just didn't expect you to leave on your own. Then the line went dead. I stared at my phone, waiting for it to ring again. Didn't. I couldn't move for a long time. I kept replaying the voice in my head. She needed you out. That single line hit harder than anything else. I thought about the way Sarah had acted during fights lately, not just cold but almost scripted. Like she wanted me to say the wrong thing. Like she was trying to draw a reaction. Not solve the problem but document it. And now she was silent. Not because she was panicking, but because maybe she'd already succeeded. That night, I blocked the door with a chair. I turned off the lights, unplugged the TV, and sat in the corner with my back to the wall. I stared at the door for hours. No knocks this time. No sounds. But I still couldn't sleep. By the time morning came, my face looked sunken in the mirror. My beard had grown out. My eyes were *T. I barely recognized myself. I didn't call Sarah. I didn't tell anyone where I was. I just let myself disappear into that room, hoping answers would come with enough silence. And they did. That evening, an email arrived from an address I didn't recognize. No subject line, just a single PDF attachment. The file name was cipher9_thread_transcript. There's a strange kind of stillness when you open something you instinctively know will change you, like the air itself leans in. When I tapped the PDF from that anonymous email, my thumb hovered for a full minute. I stared at the file name, cipher9_thread_transcript, wondering what kind of person picks a name like that. It sounded like something from a Cold War novel or a hacker's manifesto. But it was real, and it was sent to me. The file opened to a plain, black and white text document. No logos, no formatting, just timestamps and messages. Hundreds of them. October 2nd, 6:21 p.m. Cipher 9. He's starting to question things again. Suggest misdirection. Blame fatigue. October 2nd, 6:22 p.m. Got it. We'll spin it as work burnout. He'll drop it. Sarah Moore. My wife. I scrolled slowly, jaw tightening with every line. It was like reading the script to a play I didn't know I'd been acting in. October 9th, 8:47 p.m. He's been distant again. Good. Makes it easier to frame. Do I bring up the Vegas thing yet? October 9th, 8:48 p.m. Cipher 9. No. Let him bring it up first. Use it as leverage. Don't initiate. Vegas? We never went to Vegas. Not together. Not recently. What the hell was she talking about? I read on. October 15th, 10:02 a.m. Cipher 9. Next phase starts after the hotel slip. Make it public. Use humor to redirect. October 15th, 10:03 a.m. I'm nervous. He might not laugh it off. October 15th, 10:04 a.m. Cipher 9. He will. Just pivot. Call him jealous. Everyone will side with you. The hotel slip. The card. That moment I thought was chance. The night I'd convinced myself was just a gut feeling was planned. Or at least anticipated. My breath hitched as I realized that wasn't just a mistake. It was a test. A tactic. I kept scrolling. The messages were clinical. Detached. Like they were analyzing me from a distance. Picking apart my habits. My reactions. October 22nd, 11:45 a.m. He stayed up again last night. I think he's watching me. October 22nd, 11:46 a.m. Cipher 9. Good. Let him feel paranoid. It'll validate your version later. I nearly threw the phone. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to tear the room apart piece by piece. But instead I just sat there, frozen. The motel's ugly floral bedspread brushing my knuckles as I scrolled and scrolled through the breakdown of my life. Of me. Not just cheating, this was something more. A slow dissection. A psychological dismantling. I skipped to the end. The most recent message was dated 2 nights ago. The day I left. November 2nd, 9:01 p.m. He's gone. Didn't even say anything. It worked. November 2nd, 9:02 p.m. Cipher 9. You're close. Don't engage. Let him spiral. That was it. The final entry. I set the phone down on the bed like it was radioactive. My whole body felt cold. My hands were shaking. I'd seen a lot of betrayal in my life. Friends flaking, business partners screwing each other over. But this was calculated, orchestrated, like I was being removed. And still, why? What had I done to deserve this? What did she stand to gain? My mind raced for answers, and for once, none came. I spent the rest of the night pacing the room, reading the document again and again, highlighting names, noting patterns. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I didn't trust the air in the room. And when morning came, I started checking the locks twice, 3 times, I unplugged the lamp, disassembled the alarm clock, covered the peephole with a Band-Aid I found in my toiletry kit. I knew how it sounded, paranoid, obsessive, but the messages weren't a delusion. They were real, tangible. Every time I questioned my sanity, I pulled up the file and reminded myself, you didn't imagine this. Late that evening, there was a soft shuffle outside my door. I froze. Didn't breathe. A shadow passed across the threshold. Then a sound, paper sliding under. An envelope. I waited 5 minutes before approaching it. I pressed my ear to the door. Silence. Then I crouched, grabbed the envelope, and backed away. It wasn't sealed. Inside was a single page. My handwriting. I recognized it immediately. Except I hadn't written this. Not recently. It was from months ago, the first online therapy session I'd ever done, part of a wellness program my job offered during the pandemic. I typed it into a journal prompt on a private platform. Not even saved on my devices. Just a one-time session. Anonymous. Yet here it was. My words. On a printed page. Highlighted. I think sometimes I'm too passive. Like people could leave and I just accept it. I'm not confrontational. That scares me. At the bottom, scrawled in pen, a different pen, was a name. Cipher 9. No signature. No threat. Just confirmation. They had access. They knew me. They'd been inside my head longer than I realized. I stumbled to the sink, splashed cold water on my face, and stared at myself in the cracked mirror. I looked hollow, like someone who'd been sleepwalking through his own life, only to wake up in the middle of a nightmare with no way out. I told myself to leave, to grab the bag, drive somewhere far, a different state even, but I couldn't, because somehow, despite everything, I wasn't afraid of Sarah anymore. I was afraid of how deep this went. The next morning, there was another envelope. No noise this time, just there. Inside was a photo, Polaroid, the kind that develops in real time. In it, I was sitting at our kitchen table, head down, cup of coffee in front of me. I looked relaxed, normal. Sarah was behind me, near the stove, smiling, like a candid moment on a peaceful morning. Except I had already left. I wasn't there when this was taken. I checked the timestamp on the back. November 3rd, 7:16 a.m. That was yesterday. I'd been in the motel for 3 days by then. I stared at the photo until something caught my eye. In the kitchen window's reflection, just barely visible, a figure, holding a camera, dressed in black, the outline of a hood, watching. I dropped the photo. Panic surged, but beneath it, something else rose. Resolve. This wasn't just cheating. This wasn't just a relationship ending. This was something else. A dismantling of identity. A replacement of reality. And I wasn't going to wait to see what came next. The envelopes kept coming. Each held pieces of my private life no one should know. Therapy notes, old emails, photos of me in places I hadn't been. Shadows lingered outside the motel. Knocks came at 3 a.m. My grip on reality thinned. I realized this wasn't about infidelity anymore. It was about erasing me. Sarah woke to find her accounts emptied, her phone wiped, her clothes gone. Meanwhile, I received a drive showing me in a white room saying, "You broke the loop." I drove toward the ocean, breathing freely. She was left in nothingness. My new life had just beg***n.